Well, that's great. And just want to make sure you can hear me clearly because my internet was choppy first. Okay, good, good. So it's a pleasure to meet all of you. Nikki, thank you so much for the invite. You can always reach out to me proactively, not when it's a last minute need. You know that I'm here and I love the groups of people that you bring together. And your energy is always extremely positive and you're looking to change people's lives. And so I want to be a part of that. And it seems like everyone on this call has, in some way or another, is looking to positively affect people. Um, and so that's incredibly inspiring. We need that now. There are so many big challenges in this world that need fixing. And the timing is right to fix them, both, I think, with advanced technology coming to help us understand what needs fixing and then actually putting it in place to help. And I think that to Mark's point, we're at a time where humans are quickly evolving, uh, and some faster than others, into a more collective mindset, a more balanced mindset with our encroachment on nature. Uh, and you would think something like a global pandemic, would bring humans together. But we've seen so much divisiveness, at least in the United States over the last couple of years. And how do you politicize a pandemic? It's just totally insane. So I think we're at such an interesting crossroads in this time and world. It's an exciting time to be alive. And it feels pretty urgent that this generation or the next is the one that needs to really figure things out on the social and environmental level, so that we can, at least pretend like we're going to be around in the year 2050 and surviving and thriving together. Um, so these types of conversations are exciting to me, and so I'm happy to be here. Um, my path is not so interesting, but and still kind of just getting started. But I got my early start in the music industry because I grew up playing music and loved it, and wanted to figure out how to be part of the business side of something that I loved so much. And so, even at an early age, I started teaching piano lessons. When I was in high school, I was teaching young kids, but I was also teaching my friends' parents. And while a lot, just the reason why I'm bringing this up is because a few of you are working with 14 to 19-year-olds. A lot of my friends were working at the ice cream shop, taking an hourly wage for $10 an hour, putting in tons of time. And I found a way to be entrepreneurial by doing something that I loved and sharing what I loved with people in my community, and was able to make a lot more money a lot faster in the process. Ended up spending all that money on my high school girlfriend, but that's a different story. But when I got into college, I was lucky to get a job as a marketing representative for Sony Music. And so over the course of my college career, I was working at various music venues, going to tons of shows, promoting the shows, picking up, it was basically bands that had just gotten signed to Sony Music. I was part of a college marketing program. So I was one of 50 marketing representatives across the country that were helping to promote these bands. And so we did everything from picking them up at the airport to, giving their CDs to the local radio stations, just really helping to promote on a local level and especially around our university. So that's really where I got my start in marketing, and I loved it. And when I graduated from school, I was gung-ho and ready to get a job at Sony Music, but it was just at the time where that industry was being turned upside down by Napster and the internet and people no longer wanting to buy CDs. So I was 18 and I got to see these music professionals who had been, in this industry that was making so much money for their whole career. And every week another 10% were being laid off, and these SVPs who had made their career and thought they were set were being kicked out. And there was this move towards digital music that no one really understood yet. But it was just starting there. And so I said, maybe this isn't the right place for me to be. Thinking back now, I kind of wish I was one of the first people working on the digital side at a big music label like that. But what I realized was that I didn't love selling CDs or music. What I loved about the music industry was the actual of bringing people together for a shared experience. Music festivals is kind of where I landed. And so I spent a couple of years putting together small scale music events. I traveled after college around Asia and got to be part of a great music festival in Nepal, in Kathmandu. It's called Jazz Mandu, and they brought 100 jazz bands from around the world into Nepal and created this fantastic event that took over the entire city. And so at around that age, I guess 20, 21, I realized that, the power of bringing people together to form community, to create shared experiences was really powerful. And that was something that I wanted to dig in more to. But what I also realized was that there was the music industry as a whole was not accomplishing what it could with bringing all these people together. Very much a money-making business. Get people to buy tickets, bring them in, show them a good time. They have some drinks, they make some memories, and then they go. But how do you take the power of bringing people together and insert a common cause and build affinity to causes that people care about? And how do you engage those people after the event to keep that experience going and to keep them engaged with each other? So that is really the base of what drives me is this idea of bringing community together to create affinity for causes. I created a business called GiveFest that was aimed at totally redefining the way that the festival industry worked, creating new standards for sustainability. I think this is still an opportunity. It didn't come to fruition, but the way that it's how do you say your name? Is it Niall? So you come from the real estate. Niall, I'm sorry. Yeah, Niall. From real estate. You've got lead.
I think that was Marcus. Yeah, real estate.
Marcus. Okay, sorry. Marcus, with real estate, you've got LEED certified buildings that hit a level of sustainability. And in food, you've got organic certified. There's sort of the certification that you can achieve when you hit certain levels. But that doesn't exist for the events industry, where you can say this event hits a certain level of sustainability or local impact or something like that, where you can say, this event can be certified as a give back event or as a sustainable event. And I think there's a big industry there for whoever wants to take that on. I tried and then got distracted with a full-time job offer. But there's, I think especially as we come out of this pandemic, there's such pent-up demand for in-person events and experiences. And I think the live event space is going to really explode. And so how do we do it in a more sustainable way? How do we do it in a more impactful way? How do you connect on the music festival example? How do you connect a band to a cause so that they can raise money for that cause, while they're playing on stage, as people donate to vote for a song type of thing? you ensure that the food vendors that you're bringing into this giant festival are not these big conglomerate catering companies, but are, you know, farmers market style, things like that. So I think that there's an incredible opportunity to redefine live events. And if anyone is interested in pursuing that on this call, I'd love to talk to you about that. Like I said, I got distracted and ended up taking a full-time job at a company called Galvanize, which was my first real experience into tech, and it's where I got a chance to meet Nikki. And Galvanize is an organization. They call themselves a learning community for technology, only based in the US as of right now, but with 8 campuses across the country. Inside those campuses, you have kind of traditional co-working space for startups with a lot of mentorship and acceleration programs. They also have data science and web development and AI and machine learning schools. So the students come in cohorts of 20 to 30 and take 3 to 6 month high tech programs. And then you also have like Fortune 500 larger industry enterprises that are sitting in these campuses and tapping into the innovation of the startups that are there and the students that are graduating from these programs. So what you end up having is startups that hire data scientists out of this school, and they meet because they're just inside this campus and there's great programming for the community. And then you have these larger enterprise industries that end up either acquiring or partnering with a lot of the startups that are there. And so it's just bringing everything under one roof, which was really incredible. And I got a chance to lead across all of the campuses, our partner marketing and event strategy. So I was looking at how do you create programming and create interesting marketing programs with partners to get more. It was about getting more startups into the ecosystem, getting more students enrolled into the programs. And then we got to run a lot of interesting acceleration programs with like a Pfizer healthcare accelerator stands out. And we had partnerships with IBM, getting more developers using Watson. And we had a program with Amazon Alexa where we had our startups and our data scientist students creating new skills with Amazon Alexa. So just my first real experience creating and running these programs for enterprise businesses, and connecting them to innovators for their technology. From there, I jumped in with Google Accelerator, very much aligned with the acceleration programs at Galvanize. But basically, Google has a team inside of this big organization, a very small, scrappy team. It was 5 people total when I started, and it grew to 13. But they're essentially an accelerator as a service, and they for other programs at Google. So Google Assistant would come to the Google Accelerator and say, hey, we want to spin up an acceleration program for our Assistant product, and go for it. Or we had different regional leads saying, hey, we really want to create an acceleration program for technology in India. Spin it up and go for it. And so what that meant for me was I had a chance to work with regional leads around the world and different product owners at Google, and eventually, working with over 500 startups who went through this Google acceleration program. And my favorite experience from that was a program that we did with Google.org, which is the philanthropic side of Google. It's called the AI Impact Challenge, and basically an open call to nonprofits and educational institutions around the world to say, how do you think AI and machine learning can help you tackle a major problem that you've had an obstacle overcoming. And they had over 2,000 organizations apply, and 20 got accepted. It was a $25 million grant pool that was distributed to these teams. But what was most exciting to me was that these nonprofits, some working in health and human services, others in environmental programs, all got a chance to work very closely over the course of 6 months with data science experts at Google, external mentors, and over the course of, I think these projects are still continuing. It's been a year and a half, and they've got another year and a half until they, the project ends. So they're getting mentorship from Google for years and years, above and beyond just the financial grant that they received. And yeah, so Nikki, my time there ended about a year ago. And over the course of the pandemic, I have spun up my own social impact business called Collective Impact. My goal is to help mission-driven organizations access innovation to achieve their missions faster and in a more effective manner. I help nonprofits access technology who've never gotten involved there before, and I'm also helping larger tech organizations use their technology to help mission-driven organizations. I'm basically trying to connect the two. And so I've, over the course of the pandemic, I've had about 5 clients that I've been working with, and putting together various programs for them. And I just got a great client with Salesforce.org about a month and a half ago, and it's on the marketing side of the house. So they're basically looking to sell Salesforce technology to nonprofits around the world. And I like that because their customers are mission-driven organizations. But yeah, I've quickly jumped into a corporate lifestyle here where I'm on so many calls with so many people, and I'm just trying to identify the gaps of where I can have the most impact in the shortest amount of time, without getting sucked into meetings with 80 people on them. But I think my opportunity is to actually help them put together a nonprofit accelerator. So it's interesting because I'm brand new, and so it gives me the opportunity to reach out to tons of people across this giant company and start to connect dots internally with the team that I'm consulting for, with teams that they've never communicated with, to see if we can put something like that together. So just getting started there. And that's kind of where I am. Thanks for letting me ramble about that for some time. Hope it gives you a good understanding of where my mindset is, and happy to, if any pieces of that are interesting, I'm happy to dig into more. Or Nikki, you tell me how you'd like to lead from here.
It's actually perfect to spend our last day of this tour together with you, because the mission of the tour Reboots is to identify, and that's kind of a task for each individual in this program, to identify who is the person you'd like to be by the end of this year. Unlike the New Year's resolution where you start January 1st with all the good intentions and February 1st looks like December 1st. I want everyone, or invite everyone, to think about who do you want to be by December 31st, 2021. And then come back to today and ask yourself, how did I get there? With all these conversations that we have during the course of the 10 days, because today because of the inauguration last Wednesday. Usually it's Monday to Friday, but this time we had Monday to Friday minus Wednesday plus Wednesday. Hence, in the midst of the next week, in the middle of the next week, that last day of the program. And you've always been, to me, a purpose-driven personality, always mission, purpose, greater idea. Even though you've been attached to corporate structures, Google is a corporate structure. Salesforce, I guess, is an even more corporate structure because they cater to corporate structure, so they must click the same way. So you know both worlds. Here in the room, we actually also have both. We also have corporate structures, and we also have this mindset of, okay, how can I do something that's bigger than myself? And I was just curious to hear from you from these two worlds. You see, what are the traits of a person who sees the mission as a bigger calling than the money or the revenue? And how does this at the end of the day find together again? I don't know if that makes sense for you.
I think there are people on this call who can answer that much better than I can, because they're working directly with students or individuals who are trying to, help them bring excitement and purpose. I don't know. For me personally, I've just always naturally felt purpose driven. It's not something that I learned. And now I'm still struggling to just connect more and more to purpose driven people. And wanting to find that community and wanting to find mentorship with those who have really successfully created impact in the world, working within the corporate structures and kind of trying to break the corporate structures. A lot of these innovative startups grow into big companies and then they become big corporate companies. It's like what you're saying about the New Year's resolution, you set out in one path and you end up sort of falling back in line or falling to what was comfortable. I
don't know if you've
been, I don't know, what does everyone else think?
I don't know if you've had the same observation, but I've been in a global network where business models had to be rolled out globally. And the idea was a one look, one feel global strategy. And then I've been with TED, where it's not about to roll out a business model, but to roll out the passion and an idea, a greater idea globally. And it was very smooth and easy. Wherever I went to share something with someone where it was clear that no one would make money, it was actually a lot easier to get people excited about than when I went to all these places and said, hey, I'm bringing you revenue, 5-digit or more revenue per month, but you have to follow these guidelines. Everyone was like, no, this doesn't work that way. But when it was sort of a bigger than self concept, it was a lot easier for everyone to actually adapt to it and follow it and join it. I don't know, I guess with Launchpad, you've been in a comparable situation because it was also an endeavor across the world with projects that are following problem-solving mindset rather than money into the pockets mindset.
Yep. And there's room for both, I guess. And maybe you bring more people over to purpose-driven work if there's also financial incentive. People are starting to realize, like with their investments, financial investments, that if you, like there's two portfolios, the sustainable portfolio is actually performing much better than the traditional portfolio, the dirty or, that sort of thing. So I think that we can create a lot of impact that way. And nonprofits tend to be a little bit tied in what they can do from just a structural standpoint of marketing or being able to pay people most, because the goal is to keep overhead low. So there are incredible for-profit industries and businesses, and a lot of these startups that I've gotten to work with through Google are going to be incredible money-making machines, but are also redefining healthcare and bringing access to healthcare for so many people, or actually solving the energy issue with a big money-making industry. So there's room for both.
Following the fashion of Clubhouse, now that everyone's on Clubhouse, I invite everyone to come to the hot seat and contribute and join to the conversation. Whereas I see this more as a conversation maybe than a Q&A. So unmute yourself, join us here on the hot seat. And
so I'd like to ask a question, Michael. What is it about your purpose quest that's been so inherent that is related to your lust for feeling uncomfortable? Your thirst for adventure.
That's interesting. I think they're related in my like desire to kind of squeeze the most out of the time that I've got. Feeling uncomfortable feels really good because it's sort of the feeling of living. It's kind of like a really hard workout where you're breathing so hard that you might pass out. Like that's not a bad thing. That's like living. So I love the feeling of being uncomfortable, and but I don't, how does that relate to the purpose? I don't know. How would you answer that question?
It's like the identity which flows into purpose. I identify as this, a producer, an innovator, whatever you identify with, is usually based on some sort of objective. So when you compress yourself into a life and go, oh, I better make the most of a life.
Yeah.
You're creating a sense of discomfort as a form of motivation. And when we see people who win the lottery, for instance, or people who are executives who reach a pinnacle of income, their productivity innovation can either collapse because now they don't know what to do with success because they don't have that compression anymore, or they reinvent a new solution problem matrix that they have to solve. And Elon Musk isn't satisfied with just creating Tesla. He wants to get to Mars. And I just imagine as soon as things happen where he's got teams on Mars, he's going to come up with something else. So there's this thing that's, it's an addiction really, ultimately. It's an addiction to knowing that you're not wasting time.
Yeah.
So there's a deeper thing to explore
exactly.
beyond that, which is, what do I do when I realize that I've achieved everything? And I run into this with my older clients, because when you identify with what you do instead of who you are, the discomfort can become debilitating because there's no direction. You don't know who you are or where to go or what to do, because everything's related to this externalized version of your identity, this productivity linked to identity. So that's why the axiom, don't retire, just change the work style. Don't retire, go do something else, right? And just recognize for your body what your limitations are around how much work and how often and how stressful and all that stuff. So that's my answer. How did that land for you?
It lands well. The idea of being, uncomfortable as a form of motivation because you're making progress.
So that question,
well.
What would you do if all of a sudden you had $500 million in the bank? Like, what would the question is, what would you do if you knew, if you were fearless, or what would you do if you knew you couldn't fail? Those are all sorts of similar sorts of inquiries.
Yeah. For me, beyond obviously ensuring that my family is taken care of and very comfortable and feels like they also can take the pressure off, it would be about how do you influence the people in power to make the changes that we need to make right now to bring the rest of the world to feel what $500 million in the bank feels like.
Yeah. I love going down this rabbit hole. There's so much richness in it. Like, there's so many questions. And I just look at someone like Bill Gates, who he faced that question. Now what do I do? So he's doing everything he can as far as vaccine programs and, various things like that. Now we could talk about competency and capacity and his theoretical focus, whether it's in alignment with our belief systems or not, but it's, who are we to judge, really?
Right. How do you square the desire to be productive, be uncomfortable, make progress and impact with that sort of higher level of being that's beyond your own, you know, life situation, and is more kind of at this level of like presence, just being present in the moment.
Wow. The way I've answered that for myself is in two things: the Buddhist concept of conceit, which is that there's no superiority, there's no inferiority, and there's no equality, right? Which is another way of saying we're all one, right? But not equal. And then there's something called the Bodhisattva Vow, which is this philosophical idea that of permanent reincarnation as the basic mode of life. If you'll take that as a given just for the sake of the conversation, whether that's your faith or not. There's a moment where you have this opportunity not to reincarnate, where you're quote, go to nirvana. And the Bodhisattva vow is the vow to return again to be in service to the liberation of others' suffering.
Yep.
And so that's how I answer that question, is that I'm not superior or equal or lesser than anyone. And that what lives in my heart in this life, in this moment, is this Bodhisattva vow of, I want to be a pathway for myself to liberation. And then as the function of that, the reason for that is to be then a facilitator for others' liberation from suffering. And then the third thing is, one of my main teachers, he did it in a secular way. Like, he broke this out away from Buddhism and described it as the path of the sacred path of the warrior. And he separated it from all of the Buddhist baggage, if you will, and made it just this concept of service, devotion, and, you know, courage, fearlessness, you know, sensitivity, beauty, art. Because when I look out at the world, I see this enormously beautiful creation, right? And I see this amazing synergy of chance, really. And you get to the quantum level of how did it all get here? Like the odds that this all got here this way is pretty amazing. And that gets into miracle theory and all that stuff. But, you know, when we look at it, what's the greatest spaceship ever built that will get us the farthest through eons of time? It's the planet. It's the most sustainable spaceship we've got, which brings in the 7 generations theory. We should care for 7 generations beyond us so well, right? And Michael, you're frozen. You look like we've lost you. So I'm going to stop speaking.
Michael, are you?
Oh, he's gone.
Gone. Probably it's going to reboot back in. It's all recorded. We have it. System. I love the 7 generations mindset.
Bye, Dries.
Bye, Dries. Let's see how Michael will find his way back here.
The 7 generations mindset, which intellectually I can sort of get, but practically I don't get. So I'm just a dead straight practical guy. You know, I have a motorcycle behind me. And I haven't read the book by Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance. Actually, I have read it, it's rather but yeah, I like fixing things and helping people fix things. And Mark, I have to tell you, I get really concerned that I don't have the intellectual grasp when I meet people. I just listened to the conversation between between Michael and Mark. I was thinking, oh my goodness, this is a conversation which completely bypasses me. You know, purpose is, yeah, do good stuff, feel good about it, you know, get up bright and early, wanting to do great stuff. And, you know, it's just lovely to feel like life has been worthwhile. When I go beyond that, whoa, you know, I go down this sort of thing about, oh, fuck it, I've got stuff to do. If that makes sense. I'm just intrigued, Michael. I mean, I love the concept. So a lot of my friends, so one of my friends now runs Universal Music, and another one used to be Michael Jackson's tour manager. And they're always they're sort of also sort of saying, hey, you know, I mean, right now they're sort of saying, but music is this great thing which binds us together. And I love what I love everything which you've done so far. I just don't get it why you're at Salesforce. So there must be something more which you can see, which I can't see, about the what you can bring to square your desire to do great stuff with some, you know, why not EY or KPMG or
I love it. I love it. And I want Mark to respond to your question about practical versus theoretical. Love to hear that. But to answer the question about Salesforce, I'm excited about the opportunity here because they have technology that, if it's implemented effectively and it is being done by some nonprofits, it can change the world. You know, their customers on, I'm not on the industry side, so we're not selling to real estate or financial companies. It's the customers are, you know, the biggest nonprofits in the world and some of the smallest, you know, all who are working on major issues. And the team that I'm on wants to sell the technology, so they're thinking about revenue. But their sister team is this customer success team that works deeply to help implement the technology, to help them grow their impact, raise the amount of funding they get, do it with less operational cost, which turns into just more impact. And they've got, you know, they're a big company. They're like a Google. So their influence is there, with 40,000 current nonprofit customers. So it's about how do I as an individual create the most impact in the shortest amount of time. I think it's through the conduit of this major influential company who's got the attention of nonprofits. So I'm hopeful that I can make an impact to get more nonprofits benefiting from that technology, and to also help Google form a partnership with Salesforce, since I've, you know, worked at both, so that the tech industry, you know, thinks about, let's not just on an individual profit base, but how do we raise the whole industry? So I like that they have a lot of influence. But it's
so maybe I should talk to you. I should talk to you separately.
Okay. I'd welcome it.
Michael,
Mark,
do you want Michael, are you open to my response?
I would love to hear your response about, I'm a practical person.
And how about you, Marcus?
Yeah, but last time we had a conversation, went a deep hole.
Yes, I'll try to be super brief and concise.
No, I didn't mean that. It just, it got quite emotional.
Yeah. Modern science is just beginning to recognize the intelligence of the body around other nerve centers than the brain. And most recently, gut wisdom has been one of the forefronts of those things, this idea that our gut influences our capacity to execute. And what I would say to you is, your sensation of not being able to follow the intellectual part of what's happening is wholly unnecessary to the root level of your own nervous system inherently knowing what right action is. And that's obvious in your deeds. And so meanwhile, you work with children and you don't understand the intellectual thing of 7 generations, but you don't need to, because your life is a pure example of it. You just do it without having to think about it or have something cool to say about it. And so language and the grand idea, which is part of my mode of operations, influential, inspiration, speech, blah, 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 the art of bullshit, is one layer to helping people reach for their North Star. And practicality grounded in right action has no need for any of that, because you're just doing the do.
Marcus, still confused, but on a higher level.
No, I'm gratified by that. I get it. I get that. Thank you, Mark. I get that. And it was a good swerve, Michael, on passing it to Mark.
You like that?
I thought that was great. Yeah. Let's find out from Niall, because Niall's got this client base which he's trying to nudge and move. What do you think, Niall?
Well, something you mentioned, Michael, towards the beginning, when you were talking about your music festival activities, and you said it was about what you're trying to do is to insert a common cause and then keep people engaged after the event, and how do you make them connect with each other afterwards to make change happen. When you said that, I thought that is exactly what I'm trying to do with some of my clients. I mean, you know, almost word for word. And whether it's a seminar, a workshop, or some sort of a project as the event, it doesn't matter. You know, the big issue is how do you actually, because it's all about transformation and change, you know, corporate transformation, perhaps in my professional activities. And you know, I don't think anybody's cracked it, frankly. I've not seen it, you know, there are some nice theories and nice change models and everything else, but actually doing it consistently and not just a one-off, I've not really seen that yet. And I wonder whether, you know, the acceleration that we're seeing with the pandemic, maybe the evolution of a different generation that is more purposeful naturally, perhaps. Again, it's the right time for this to start taking effect. And so, you know, the efforts that you're making with Salesforce, you know, the timing, I hope, is absolutely right for everything to start clicking. And maybe I'm being very optimistic, but I see some signs of that as well. I mean, you know, looking at a couple of the corporates I'm working with, they are now realizing that, you know, the conversations have always been about purpose and, you know, what's our, more around vision and mission and less about purpose. In the last few years, it's been more about purpose. The last 6 months, I get the feeling that they're really taking it seriously. And it's not just, oh, we need to do that because, you know, our employees want it or our shareholders want to have us make these sound bites. I think that they're starting to take action and taking it really seriously. I mean, some more quickly than others. So sorry, I'm going on, but I think there are a lot of things going in and connecting to making what you're trying to do and many of us trying to do, having more chance of success. But we still need to work very hard to make it happen, I think.
I completely agree. And I've been realizing also, I've got a 2.5-year-old. And so the last couple of years, my focus has gone more deeply into my own personal life, both ensuring the happiness and health of my family, but also enjoying the family. And so I can feel, even though I am someone who searches for community and purpose and bigger mission, I can feel my own pull towards my individual life. And so if I'm feeling that, then others must too. And then, you know, what does that turn into in terms of the collective? You kind of leave that behind to focus on the things that are going to help ensure that your core unit is taken care of. And so sort of this, it's like a quarter life crisis or something, but it's a shift in mindset that I think most people fall into. You know, whether you had the idea of a collective, when you're growing up, you've got school, you've got team sports, so you're in these communities, and then that sort of falls off unless you really try hard to continue to activate those. So I think there's something there that maybe organizations, companies can help with, or maybe it's Clubhouse and technology, or these calls, more people doing these things. But you know, I crave a simpler time where we live in a community, and it's sort of like this kibbutz mindset of, you know, we all live in the same place. I live now 3,000 miles away from my family on the East Coast, and you know, the idea of a small community, like even seeing how it would work on a small level of, you know, are you active in your local community, let alone are we thinking about global issues, you know, as individuals. There's so much there.